Okay, you guys, what if I told you there was a spiritual successor to the infamous Nissan Stagea 260 RS? The wagon, the awesome manual transmission wagon that was fitted with the RB26, twin turbo, a manual transmission, all-wheel drive, was one of the greatest enthusiast wagons, in my mind, from the 1990s Japanese era. What if I told you there was a spiritual successor to that car? What if I told you this same car, the Nissan Stagea 350s, is more rare than a Ferrari F40, more rare than a Carrera GT, more rare than a 911 997 GT3 RS 4.0, yeah, and almost as rare as a Nissan Skyline GTR V-Spec NER in Millennium J. It's almost that rare. Almost, so close. But today is going to be a huge lesson, you guys, okay, I promise. What if I told you that this isn't all it's cracked up to be? And this is exactly why numbers aren't everything. The cover of a book does not tell the whole story, and the Nissan Stagea 350s basically encompasses all of what that means. So let's get behind the wheel, let's go for a drive and see what it's all about. Now, if you guys have done any amount of research or watched any videos or are obsessed possibly with the Nissan Stagea 260 RS, another one of Autech's creations back in the 90s, you may know that that is a legendary car, an absolutely legendary car. I've driven a couple of them before. Most notably, I drove one that was actually fitted with the R34 GTR front end. Okay, yeah, that's fully sideways. I don't know why every time the back end steps out on a vehicle, I say it's fully sideways. It's fully sideways, to me, would actually imply that there's some full lock going on, which there absolutely wasn't. But unlike the 260 RS, this one is rear wheel drive, okay? So under the hood is, of course, a 3.5 liter V6. It is the DE, it's not the HR, which means it's plucked from the early 350Z. It is not from the later 350Z, although this is still drive-by-wire. We are down on power a little bit, but still 276. Somehow, after years of making the Stagea, they managed to keep this one exactly at the disappointing gentleman's agreement 276 horsepower. Also, the one I'm driving today has incredibly warped brakes. That being said, 276 horsepower, I'll give it that. It's not slow. It's absolutely not slow at all. At least the RB has a little bit of rarity to it. It's a special engine. It's got that kind of spirit of Japan to it. If you could put something into an engine that isn't like a part or an actual physical thing, the RBs have that. Whatever that is, the RBs have that. The VQ does not have that. And while it's a good engine, it's not particularly fun to rev out. It's incredibly easy to make a VQ sound like absolute garbage. It's a lot tougher to make an RB sound like garbage. And then your eyes are drawn to the tach. And it stops. It stops just after 6,500 RPM. That's unacceptable. It's an NA 6-speed. It should rev to 9,000. This one's got a catback muffler on it, catback exhaust system, sitting on Nismo suspension, progressive springs. It's a little bit lower than factory, a little bit stiffer. As much as a Stagea could be considered a cash grab by Nissan, this is kind of what that feels like. At 90 kilometers an hour there, the back end wants to step out. The steering, not even close to the previous generation. It has that kind of artificial, incredibly quick return to center that is so indicative of mid to late 2000s, Japanese, European pedestrian vehicles. So, under the surface, why isn't the 350S quite as special as it could have been? It was so close. First, the looks. You guys tell me. Please let me know in the comments below. The M35 Stagea generation is extremely polarizing. I'm not the biggest fan of how it looks. It doesn't look bad, I don't think. I haven't really decided yet. I, for one, am not a fan of this chrome plastic going on the grille there. Fender flares look cool. Overall, it's kind of boring, a little bit too pedestrian, especially coming fresh off the heels of the 260 RS. I do love this hip line here that comes right above the fender flares. That's pretty cool. It steals the 350Z wheels, or at least our buddy Patrick, who imported this car, has put 350Z wheels on this. It kind of has a bit of a Volvo vibe going on with these taillights. Crucially though, underneath, there is no LSD to be found. It just totally ruins the fun. It's got the recipe. It's got the NA35 V6. It's got a 6-speed manual. It's got plenty of horsepower, plenty of torque, but you can't hold a slide. You cannot hold a slide, and I'm sure you could very easily swap in a differential from a 350Z or otherwise, and you'd be fine, but I'm talking factory here. And then last, or the last major Achilles heel for me, is the seating position. It's so, and the seats, it's so high. There's no thigh bolsters, there's barely anything there, not electronic, no lumbar. Those are the main things that really prevented the M35 350S from becoming such a great sports wagon and a kind of last hurrah for this generation or this era of Nissan sports wagons. They ruined the seats. As far, it's so disappointing. Can you guys tell? Can you guys tell by now? As an Autech product, a company that made its name creating the highest revving NA S15, the S15 Varietta, a sought after vehicle that's skyrocketing in value right now. And then of course, in Japan, the Skyline name was rebranded onto the G35, effectively. So, you look on the interior here, what do we have? I am shifting an early G35 or 350Z 6-speed manual. It's not the CD09, the later ones that are much stronger. I'm looking at a G35 interior. So yes, this is a Skyline sedan. It is the successor to the 260 RS, but it could not be more different. It's fun, but the handling is unpredictable. Unpredictable at best. Those cars feel like Skylines. A 260 RS, if you put not a blindfold on, that would not work on a back road. If nobody told you and they just put you into a 260 RS, you might mistake it for an R33 GTR, let's say. That's how good those cars feel. Super sketchy with the open diff though, I'm not gonna lie. It isn't, I mean, it's damp on the ground, but mid-corner, the rear end is skating around. It holds the line and then it doesn't, and then it does, and then it doesn't. It's incredible. Like, there's no confidence in the rear end as far as grip is concerned. Current driving conditions taken into consideration, the front end does have a lot of grip. The front end does have a lot of grip. It's just when you do have a lot of confidence in the front wheels and the front tires and what they're doing, it's so imperative that the rear end is predictable, because inevitably the rear end's gonna follow. If you come in just a little 10% too hot with the front grip, the rear end's gonna follow into a little bit of oversteer. And because the rear end seems so unpredictable here, it's causing me not to push as hard as I necessarily would with the front tires. Plenty of room though. This thing is huge. There's a couple weird things about it. The trunk is completely plastic. It's cool. They never sold this here in North America, but is it worth the import? As a daily, yes, but if you're looking to really huck around the back roads, it's going to need some upgrades. Here you go. This is one of the most rare Nissan wagons in existence. 167 Nissan 350s Stageas were ever made, and Patrick, my buddy Patrick, has brought in probably the first into Western Canada. So thanks guys for watching. Hit me up on Instagram if you want, at Roads Untraveled. You can see what we're shooting, and subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the bell notification so you don't miss anything that's coming up. We'll see you guys next time.